Okay guys, welcome to another Pencast, Monetary Policy Part 2. This is the one that you need to pay attention to. This is the one that's going to be examinable. Alright, so what we learnt in the Part 1 was that the Reserve Bank has signed up to the Policy Target Agreement and they've agreed to keep inflation between 1 and 3% over the medium term. If you like, that is a bandwidth. We could call that the inflation bandwidth, couldn't we? And we could illustrate it this way. We could put down here time, and here are the two bandwidths going in. That's the 1% one, and that's the 3%. Remember, this is CPI, as measured by Stats New Zealand. So this is now 6 months, 12 months and 18 months, because monetary policy is conducted using forecasts. Because if you make a change to the OCR today, it takes 12 to 18 months for all the changes to happen. In other words, the transmission takes about 12 to 18 months. Alright, so if inflation stays within that bandwidth, then the Reserve Bank is doing its job. And nothing has to be done to the OCR. The OCR can stay as it is today. There's no need for the OCR to change because inflation is being very well behaved. Alright, so let's contrast this with a situation here. Here's the forecast. There's the bandwidth going in, the 1%, the 3%. Here's now. We'll go 6 months, we'll go 12 months, we'll go 18 months. Okay, and today this is the trajectory for inflation. It breaches that upper bandwidth. So right now the Reserve Bank has to run what's called a tight monetary policy. So what they have to do today, they've got to put up the official cash rate. And eventually, after a period of 12 to 18 months, what's going to happen is that the rate of inflation will come down. So the question is why? Right, let me do that correction. So let's say that the OCR goes up. This is going to be the path or the trajectory of inflation. It'll stay within the bandwidth, and which means that inflation will have come down or will have stayed constant, one or the other. Okay, so what are the mechanisms that bring about this change? Well, these are referred to as the transmission channels. And you and I are just going to look at two that are going to... Okay, so let's have a look at the first of the two transmission channels. So it's going to be the interest rate. I'll change that colour. Be the interest rate transmission channel. Alright, so how does it go? Alright, so tight policy being run, so the OCR goes up, therefore all other interest rates go up after a bit of a lag. Now, what does that mean? Well, you're going to have interest sensitive, consumption and investment spending. Which way are they going to change? They're going to go down, aren't they? Because suddenly using your credit card is much more expensive because the interest rate on it's gone up, so you're going to buy less. So there's going to be less demand pull inflation. So inflation is going to go down. What about credit availability? Well, banks are going to realise that people's ability to repay is not going to be as great because they've got to pay back more interest. So they're going to lend to less people. Therefore, there's going to be less demand for goods and services. In other words, C and I are going to come down again, aren't they? So again, there'll be less demand pull inflation, and that will be bringing inflation down. What about the other component of this? This is asset prices. Well, there's a well-known relationship is that when interest rates go up, then asset prices go down. So we're talking about the price of a home goes down, so you feel less wealthy. If you're going to feel less wealthy, you're going to buy less, aren't you? So there's going to be less demand pull inflation. Asset prices come down, inflation is going to come down. So these three components work in tandem to bring inflation down, and that's what we want on this occasion. All right. Next one is the exchange rate transmission. Exchange rate transmission channel. I've got to do these quickly, guys. 15 minutes, it goes very quickly. All right. So what we're talking about, again, a tight monetary policy, official cash rate going up. Therefore, interest rates are going to go up. Now, what's going to happen? Well, look, what's going to happen is that the New Zealand dollar is going to appreciate, isn't it? So the New Zealand dollar appreciates. I'm running out of space. Appreciates. Now, what does that mean? Well, it means that imports become cheaper. Imports cheaper. Things like petrol become a lot cheaper. We know that's what has kept petrol prices low at the moment, isn't it? The high New Zealand dollar. So that means that cost push inflation is going down. So that means that inflation generally is going down, and that's what we want, isn't it? So what's going to happen to the export sector? Well, the demand for exports is going to go down. So what does this mean? Well, the export sector will release resources. So if you like, unemployment is going to increase in the export sector. That means that there will be an increased supply of labour. That means that wages won't go up as quickly. In other words, there will be a reduction in the cost push inflation. In other words, hey, inflation is going to come down. Yep, that's not bad. Okay, right, let's get on. Turn the page. All right, so what we're now going to look at is the situation of where we want to run a loose monetary policy. Okay, so let's just go in and draw things, get that overview going. So that's 1%, that's 3%, that's now, that's 6 months, that's 12 months, that's 18 months. And today, as the Reserve Bank Governor, you are faced with this forecast for inflation. What are you going to do? The lower bandwidth has been breached. So you're going to run a loose monetary policy. That means that today you're going to put down the official cash rate. If you do that, then it means interest rates are going to drop. And so what will happen is that that interest rate drop will be transmitted via the transmission channel, so that the transmission channels are going to kick in, aren't they? And so what's going to happen is that eventually inflation will go, say it, yes, will go up. Okay, so let's go in and look at those two transmission channels. Okay, so the first one is the interest rate transmission channel. How's that going to work, guys? Alright, so the OCR is going down, therefore interest rates are going to go down. Alright, so interest sensitive. C and I are going to go up, aren't they? Because the interest rate on your credit card is low, so you're going to be tempted to use it to buy more things. And so that means that there'll be an increase in demand pull inflation. So in other words, inflation is going to go up. What about credit availability? Well, people's ability to pay their loans is going to increase, isn't it? Because interest rates are lower. So the banks are going to lend more. If the banks are going to lend more, then there's going to be an increased demand for goods and services. In other words, we've got some more demand pull inflation. All right. And what about the last component of this transmission channel? We've got asset prices, haven't we? Asset prices. Oh, so what's going to happen? Well, we know that if the interest rate is going, if the interest rate's coming down, it's very easy to think you're going one way when you should be going there. So interest rates are going to be going down. So what's going to happen is that asset prices are going to be going up. So that means that house prices are going to be going up. So you're going to feel more wealthy. If you're feeling more wealthy, what are you going to do? You're going to spend more, aren't you? So asset prices are going up. And again, there's going to be some more demand pull inflation. And that's exactly what we want. I want inflation going up. Because without this channel, we'd be looking at some deflation. Alright, what we've got here is the exchange rate. Channel, or I should say transmission channel, shouldn't I really, just to be onto it. Transmission channel. Alright. So what have we got here? We've got the OCR going up. We've got the OCR going down. So we've got interest rates going down. Alright, now what's going to happen with the New Zealand dollar? Yeah, well, the New Zealand dollar is going to depreciate. Means it's going to lose value. So what's going to happen is the cost of imports is going to go up. So that's going to introduce some cost push inflation, isn't it? That's going to introduce some cost push inflation. So we know that inflation is going to be going up. Yes, that's good. All right. So demand for exports is going to go up generally. So if the dollar depreciates, the demand for our exports goes up. So what does that mean? It means our export sector competes with the other sectors in the economy, competes for resources. So this pushes up input costs. Input costs go up. Now you know if input costs go up, it means that selling prices go up. In other words, we've got cost push inflation operating. So that again, it's going to push up inflation. Is that what we want? Yes, that is exactly what we want. Right, so a quick